56 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Status of Women. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format, pursuant to the House of Order on June 23rd, 2022. I would like to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. And seeing online, we do have some witnesses here. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Interpretation of those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. And for those in the room, use your earpiece and your translation on the piece. For members, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and the clerk and I will manage the speaking list. In accordance with the committee's routine proceedings, all witnesses appearing virtually have completed the required connection tests in advance of today's meeting. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, the committee will resume its study on human trafficking of women and girls and gender diverse people. Before we welcome our witnesses, I would like to provide this trigger warning. And as Jenna has said, we do trigger warnings here, it seems. This will be a difficult study as we continue. We'll be discussing experiences related to abuse, and they will be triggering for viewers, members, or staff with similar experiences potentially. If you feel distressed or you need help, please reach out to the clerk or myself. I would now like to welcome our first panel. And just giving you a little administration, it's 10 minutes after 4 right now. We will be doing today's meeting till 6 o'clock. So we won't be going the full 2 hours. It's straight till 6 o'clock. My only concern is we'll see what the second panel is looking like. So I will probably be taking 5 minutes off here, 5 minutes off there. So don't mind me. But I got my math. I know ABC today. So I'm going to pass it over. We've got the Department for Women and Gender Equality, Crystal Garrett-Baird, the Director General for Gender-Based Violence. From the Department of Citizenship and Immigration, Alexis Graham, Director, Social and Discretionary Policy and Programs, Social and Temporary Migration Branch, and Sarah Hayward, Director, Visitors, Permits, and Horizontal Initiatives, Immigration Program, Guidance Branch. And from the Department of Justice, we have Natalie Levman, Senior Counsel, Criminal Law Policy Section. So to begin, the witnesses will be given 5 minutes each. So I'll be starting off with the Department for Women and Gender Equality for your first 5 minutes. You have the floor, Crystal.
Good day, and thank you. My name is Crystal Garrett-Baird. I am the Director General responsible for working to address gender-based violence at Women and Gender Equality Canada. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which I am coming to you from is the traditional and unceded territory of the Abiguit Mi'kmaq First Nation.
I want to thank this committee for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Women and Gender Equality Canada concerning human trafficking, a form of gender-based violence.
Many people experience violence because of their sex, gender identity, gender expression, or perceived gender. This is gender-based violence. Data shows that human trafficking is a gendered crime. Police reported incidents between 2011 and 2021 show that 96% of all detected victims were women and girls, 71% of whom were under the age of 25. Human trafficking also disproportionately impacts Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQI+ individuals, as well as their families and communities. The Gouvernement de Canada prend des mesures.
The Government of Canada is taking action to address gender-based violence through initiatives including the National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking and the recently launched National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence.
La Stratégie nationale de lutte.
Led by Public Safety Canada, the National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking brings together federal efforts under one strategic framework in a comprehensive, coordinated, and multifaceted approach.
With the national strategy, Women and Gender Equality Canada is funding 42 projects totaling nearly $14 million. These projects in communities across Canada are allocated through open calls for proposals and are led by civil society partners who represent various geographic, demographic, and lived experiences. The projects are designed to prevent and address human trafficking and support at-risk populations, victims, and survivors who are among the thousands of people reached through wage-funded projects. In addition to this work, Budget 2021 provided an investment of $601.3 million over 5 years to address gender-based violence. Of this funding, Women and Gender Equality Canada received $105 million to enhance the gender-based violence program. Some of this funding is supporting initiatives to stop human trafficking and enhance supports for at-risk populations. As part of Budget 2021 funding, the department also received $30 million for crisis hotlines to support the urgent needs of Canadians experiencing gender-based violence. Crisis lines can be a lifeline to victims and survivors, and their funding is essential in ensuring survivors and their families have access to the help they need when they need it, including those who are victims of human trafficking. Budget 2022 committed $539.3 million to support the provinces and territories in their efforts to implement the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence. This plan was launched in November 2022 by the federal, provincial, and territorial ministers responsible for the status of women. The National Action Plan was informed by over 1,000 recommendations through years of engagement. The plan provides a framework through which federal, provincial, and territorial governments will have a Canada free of gender-based violence that supports victims, survivors, and their families. This plan is aligned with and complements the National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking, along with the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women, Girls, and 2S LGBTQIA+ People National Action Plan, and the Federal Pathway. Le Plan d'Action.
The National Action Plan contains 5 pillars: support for victims, survivors, and their families; prevention, responsive justice system; implementing Indigenous-led approaches; and social infrastructure and enabling environment based on a foundation of leadership, coordination, and engagement; data, research, and knowledge mobilization; and reporting and monitoring.
The National Action Plan helps federal, provincial, and territorial governments to build on existing initiatives and continue working with victims and survivors, Indigenous partners, direct service providers, civil society organizations, experts, and researchers to prevent and address gender-based violence in Canada, including human trafficking. Merci pour votre.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We're now going to pass it over to the Department of Citizenship and Immigration, to Alexis Graham. Alexis, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Can you hear me? Is my... Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So good afternoon, Madam Chair. Bon après-midi, honorable membres.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the House of Commons and the Standing Committee on the Status of Women.
This is Graham, and I'm responsible for social and discretionary policy and programs at IRCC. And joining me is my colleague Sarah Hayward from the operations sector. Je suis ravie de vous parler.
I am pleased to be talking to you about an important issue that affects the vulnerability of individuals, and as specifically regards my department, the vulnerability of immigrants. I'm talking about human trafficking.
BC plays a small but important role in the governmental architecture associated with this serious issue of trafficking in persons. Specifically, the department is responsible for helping protect out-of-status foreign national victims of trafficking. This role has been made more visible since the Government of Canada's implementation of the Horizontal National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking in 2019. The strategy, led by Public Safety Canada, is composed of 5 pillars, and protection is the pillar under which IRCC's work falls. However, IRCC has in fact been involved in this protection role since 2006. The way that we carry out this responsibility is to issue victims a special temporary resident permit. We call these permits VTIP TRPs, forgive the acronym, and they are issued at an officer's discretion. VTIP TRPs are critical in helping victims secure immigration status in order to give them the possibility to decide on their next steps. This enables victims to escape the influence of their traffickers and start their recovery from the physical and mental trauma they may have experienced. They provide access to health care under the interim federal health program, including coverage for medical and psychological services. And they also allow victims to apply for an open work permit. These special permits may also be issued to victims' dependent family members in Canada. And it is important to note that that it is not necessary for victims to testify against their trafficker to benefit from this measure. An initial VTIP TRP is typically issued for a period of 180 days and is fee exempt. And a victim may also apply for a subsequent TRP if they wish to remain in Canada for longer, and this can be issued for up to a period of 3 years. They can also apply for permanent residence, including on humanitarian and compassionate grounds, or claim asylum if they're in need of refugee protection. Victims are generally referred to IRCC by law enforcement or non-governmental organizations, but they can also self-identify. IRCC has processes already in place to ensure that applications made by victims of human trafficking are easily identified and quickly assigned to an officer. These applications are also processed on a priority basis, taking precedence over applications of a less urgent nature.
IRCC also conducts administrative investigations to identify facilitators of human trafficking and thus try to disrupt human trafficking networks. IRCC often works in close cooperation with law enforcement agencies such as the CBSA and the RCMP.
Royal du Canada. Overall, the number of VTIP TRPs issued by the department is low. However, in recent years, numbers have been increasing. To illustrate, while fewer than 100 of these VTIP TRPs were issued per year up to and including 2018, in 2019, however, 238 were approved. Most recently, in 2022, 155 VTIP TRPs were provided to victims and their dependents. In terms of client gender, more VTIP TRPs have been issued to males in recent years. From 2019 to 2022, approximately 60% of VTIP TRPs were issued to males and approximately 40% to females. Pour terminer, je tiens à souligner.
In closing, I would like to point out that IRCC continues to monitor human trafficking cases brought to its attention and to engage with partners and stakeholders in order to ensure that the department is able to effectively carry out its mandate with a view to protecting victims of human trafficking.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. We're now going to turn it over to the Department of Justice and Natalie Levman. Natalie, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the Committee on Human Trafficking, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking from the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Nation. I propose to provide a brief overview of the relevant international legal framework, Canada's criminal law framework addressing human trafficking, and relevant jurisprudence. I'll also highlight some of the Department's work supporting implementation. Canada ratified the United Nations Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons in 2002. This treaty includes a definition of trafficking in persons in Article 3, which requires 3 elements to be present: an act, such as recruiting, transporting, or harboring another person, which is effected through specific means, such as coercion, abduction, deception, or the abuse of a position of vulnerability, for the specific purpose of exploiting that person. Rather than defining exploitation, Article 3 gives examples of exploitative conduct, such as sexual exploitation or forced labor, which require proof of coercive practices. In 2002, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act was amended to include a human trafficking specific offense that applies in transnational cases only, Section 118. This offense does not require proof of an exploitative purpose. Rather, the offense only requires proof that the accused committed a specific act, such as recruiting, transporting, or harboring a person through specified illicit means, such as abduction, deception, force, or coercion. In 2005, the Criminal Code was amended to include trafficking in persons-specific offenses, sections 279.01 to 279.03. The main trafficking offenses don't require proof that the act element was effected through illicit means. Rather, the offense only requires proof that the accused committed a specific act, such as recruiting, transporting, or harboring a person for the purpose of exploitation. Exploitation is defined given that criminal provisions require clarity. Specifically, exploitation occurs where a reasonable person in the victim's circumstances would believe that their physical or psychological safety would be threatened if they failed to provide the labor or services required of them. Relevant Ontario Court of Appeal jurisprudence clarifies that the definition of exploitation does not require proof that the victim was actually afraid, only that a reasonable person in the victim's circumstances would be. The court also explains that exploitation is to be interpreted broadly and that it captures both physical and psychological forms. In a subsequent decision, the court upheld the accused's conviction in a case that involved abuse of power but no violence or threats, and found that a broad range of factors are relevant when assessing whether conduct amounts to exploitation as defined in the criminal code. These factors include any power imbalance between the accused and the victim vulnerability due to age or personal circumstances, and the conduct employed by the accused to extract labor or services from the victim, such as physical or psychological coercion, deception, directive behavior, control of finances, or monitoring the victim's communications with others. Other appellate courts have followed this jurisprudence. It's well established that human trafficking offenses can be difficult to prove, regardless of how they are framed. As noted in Statistics Canada's 2020 Human Trafficking Juristat, prosecutors may struggle to secure convictions, including because the trauma to which victims are subjected may create difficulties in recalling the relevant events, resulting in victims being perceived as less credible. Victim support and trauma-informed care are therefore critical to both healing and successful prosecutions. To assist with implementation, justice officials regularly train law enforcement on the legislative framework, as well as related issues such as victim vulnerability and the importance of fostering relationships of trust. This is done in the context of the RCMP's Canadian Police College Human Trafficking Investigators course. That's a 10-day course. Justice officials are also working with their provincial and territorial counterparts to update the 2015 Federal, Provincial, and Territorial Handbook for Criminal Justice Practitioners on Trafficking in Persons. It's anticipated that the updated version will be ready for public release by the end of 2023. That concludes my remarks, and I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll get started with our rounds of questioning, and we'll be starting with 6-minute rounds and passing it over to Dominique Vienne. Dominique, 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being available today and for talking about this topic with us. We're realizing that it's a very large topic. Human trafficking impacts a lot of people. There is a sexual aspect and an economic exploitation aspect. My first questions are for you, Ms. Levman. Do you have a specific number in Canada of women, because 90% of cases have to do with women and girls, so do you know how many women were victims of human trafficking? Do we have that data for Canada? Do I have to specify that it's sexual in nature, or is it in separate silos? Do you already have an idea of who these victims are?
Thank you for the question. I'd like to direct you to Statistics Canada's Jurastats. So there are the two most recent ones were released in 2022 and 2021, and both of them have criminal justice statistics with the types of numbers that you're looking for. In terms of the data that we have on human trafficking more generally, human trafficking, it's a complex crime and it's often difficult to detect. So a range of data sources are required to give us a picture of how human trafficking manifests. So it's not just the Statistics Canada Jurastats that we look to figure out what human trafficking looks like in Canada. One issue that we do have, you raised the difference between forced labor and sex trafficking. The human trafficking provisions don't make that distinction. They apply regardless of the type of labor or service that are at issue. But what we do know from the human trafficking Jurastats is that the majority of cases that are going through our courts concern sexual exploitation, although forced labor cases do appear to be on the rise. So those reports, I think, will be very useful for you in terms of understanding what human trafficking looks like in Canada. Those Jurastats also refer to qualitative data, and that might help the committee as well. Qualitative data indicate that traffickers recruit and groom potential victims. They target vulnerable individuals, such as those who are socially or emotionally isolated or financially desperate, and they manipulate them, including by building trust through false promises and deception. Once victims come to rely on traffickers for their basic needs, victims are very easy to manipulate.
Combien de parents?
At the Department of Justice, how many women are you able to help? How many women are you able to help who are stuck in this web of human trafficking?
So maybe I need to explain what our role is. I'm from the criminal law policy section, and so we are responsible from a policy perspective for the criminal code, and that includes developing legislation to amend it. So if you, I think maybe you want us. Sorry.
Excuse
me.
interpretation in the okay.
Can
Can we just try it? If we could, Dominique, as I'm speaking, can you hear me? Oui? Okay. So if we can go back, I'll just pause that again. So do we need to start at the beginning of the answer, or where did you need to start, Dominique? It was the question, the answer? What part of the...
En fait, la question, c'est...
My question was, how many women, do you know the number of women in Canada who have been identified as victims of human trafficking?
As I said, what we know is from the Jurastats, and the Jurastats do provide numbers on victims, the number of victims each year in each individual human trafficking case. I don't have them memorized right now, but that should help you.
See.
Thank you. Ms. Graham. We know that trafficking is happening at our borders, unfortunately. Earlier you mentioned that you carry out investigations. What kind of investigations do you carry out? What kind of situations are you able to uncover for immigrants, for example, who are coming to Canada, but who might be forced to come to Canada? Do you have any data on your investigations that you could share with us?
Pour cette question, je vais...
I will give the floor to Ms. Hayward to answer your question.
IRCC works very, very closely with our partners in public safety, all the police services as well, and our CMP. We do what's called an administrative investigation, which means we use our database, GCMS, ou SMGC en français, to help us look for trends and strange anomalies, and then we share this information with our partners to actually do the physical investigation.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now pass it over to Sonia Sidhu. Sonia, 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all the witnesses for being with us. My first question is to the Department of Citizenship and Immigration. What efforts are in the place to ensure that newcomers, international students, and other groups are protected and they know what resources are available for them?
In terms of the specific measure that we have in place to support victims of trafficking or people who may become victims of trafficking, it really is quite focused on that out of status national population. It is designed that way because out of status nationals really are kind of within the scope of IRCC's mandate. We can confer that status and help alleviate that vulnerability, because if people are out of status, they are particularly vulnerable to exploitation and are likely to be fearful of deportation as well. So the specific measure, that VTIP TRP, is really focused on that particular population. That being said, obviously, we know that there are in-status individuals who are also vulnerable. So there are a few measures in place to help support them as well. One is specific to temporary foreign workers. So there's an open work permit for vulnerable workers who are in Canada on a closed work permit, which means that that work permit is essentially tied to a specific employer. And they can apply for this open work permit and be given that labor mobility, which enables them to kind of move out of those abusive situations that they may be experiencing. In terms of international students specifically, there's no measure that we have that kind of focuses on them. But there may be, go ahead.
It's not really to do with trafficking, but it does, because information is key to everyone, and vulnerable people. So IRCC does a lot of outreach to international students abroad. Our website is full of all kinds of information about possible nefarious traffickers or agents, and it explains how you can apply without anyone's assistance. We also, in some of the more, in some areas of the world where we know there are a lot of nefarious agents, we do also do a lot of outreach explaining, for instance, International Student Program and what they can expect. And we also do have some publicity campaigns, advertising campaigns in some parts of the world that we have more issues with.
Thank you. And my next question is to Department of Justice. How can we educate and equip children to recognize the sign of human trafficking and prevent themselves from being victimized?
It's an excellent question. It is a little bit outside of my expertise, since I deal with the criminal laws that that apply to human trafficking in the human trafficking context. But I know you had my colleague before you from Public Safety on Monday, and she explained about the public awareness measures that Public Safety is developing. Justice does the same for certain types of legal issues as well. So that type of information can be very empowering for potential, or let's say at-risk people, people who are at risk of becoming trafficked. And we want to ensure that they know their rights in Canada, that it is never okay to be exploited here. So that they know when this is occurring, they can come forward and access law enforcement. And part of what we do is train law enforcement in, we don't do the training on trauma-informed. We have experts to do that, but we do train on victim vulnerability, as I said, and the importance of fostering relationships of trust with victims, repairing those relationships so that they feel safe and comfortable to come forward to police and see them as people who will help them.
Thank you. And my next question is to Ms. Baird. What specific challenges and barriers do women, girls, and gender diverse people face when it comes to preventing and escaping human trafficking? And how is your department working collaboratively across government to address this issue?
Perfect. Thank you for the question. As mentioned, recently we've launched our National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, which is a federal, provincial, and territorial plan that is enabling us to work collaboratively, not only at the FPT level, but with Indigenous partners, civil society organizations, researchers, experts, frontline service providers, victims, survivors, and their families, and other experts to not only address gender-based violence, but end it. There is a preventative element. It is a 10-year plan that contains 5 pillars. And within that, one of the target groups is, as you mentioned, immigrant women and girls, because we know that those are one of the vulnerable groups. And that is the focus of the plan. So as we move forward and work with our federal, provincial, and territorial counterparts to establish bilateral funding agreements and implementation plans, we will be working with them as well to ensure that there's targeted measures.
Fantastic. I'll just let you all see. I've got this little thing. It says 30 seconds, and it says thank you. That's instead of saying we're done, we're saying thank you. So when you see your 30 seconds, let's just start wrapping it up. Adrienne, you have 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of the witnesses for being with us for this very important and concerning study. I am also the VP for a group on human trafficking and modern slavery, and so these issues are very important to me. My question is for all the witnesses, but I'll start with Ms. Levman. In 2012, there was a first strategy and then a second one in 2019. But the numbers are showing that there's an increase in victims of human trafficking. This impacts women, girls, and marginalized groups disproportionately. And according to Statistics Canada data, women and girls represent 96% of cases. This is a shocking number. Every time I hear it, I'm bothered deeply. And yet, we're hearing that this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's hard to see the whole picture. It's a very sensitive issue, but it's very difficult for women and girls to report cases. And there's also a lack of trust in how they would be helped if they report. There's a lot of fear around reporting. And if you have anything to add for your respective departments, what is not working for women and girls? Why are they not trusting institutions?
Thank you. I think that was for me. I think that there are a variety of reasons why there is a lack of trust and low reporting. You mentioned the Juristat. There are a lot of references to the research on those important issues as to why that might be the case. It notes, for example, that victims may be unwilling or unable to report due to trauma they've suffered or pre-existing vulnerabilities. They may have a general distrust of authorities, and that may be because traffickers have told them to distrust police. Traffickers may also have involved them in criminal activity in order to maintain this type of control over them, so threats that police may use the criminal law against them rather than to protect them as the law's objectives state. So in the training that justice officials provide through the Canadian Police College's Human Trafficking Investigators course. These issues are studied and discussed so that police are aware that they're dealing with vulnerable, traumatized people who require a special kind of support, and that they might need to interact with them many times. In fact, there's research that shows that it may take several interventions by law enforcement before that trust is built and the victim will come forward to denounce the trafficker.
Madame Graham.
Ms. Graham? And Ms. Hayward, do you have anything to add for your department on that question on the lack of trust? And you could give the perspective of immigration?
The opportunity to comment on that question. So, I mean, I think Madame Livman, she raised some very important points about, the reasons that people feel uncertain about coming forward. Those reasons are applicable, I think, to migrants as well. But in particular for migrants, there may also be additional barriers. So migrants face things like language barriers. They may have been subject to trauma in a variety of different contexts, not just in Canada, but in their home countries. They're sometimes in a particular situation of precarity where they may not have permanent resident status or are kind of just living in a difficult set of circumstances. And so that precarity sort of adds to those complex dimensions of them feeling like they don't have the agency necessarily to come forward. There's also, if you're coming from a different country, you may not be as familiar with the rights and laws of Canada as a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, someone who's well established. And so that may add, again, yet another barrier that migrants face in coming forward in these in these types of circumstances. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add anything in addition to that.
What we do with our VTIP TRP is we help to address some of that uncertainty because it gives the people the chance to have a breath and know that they're not going to be deported, because we give them the status for 6 months so that they can sit back and figure out what their next steps are without having to worry about being deported.
Et Madame Garrett Bird.
And Ms. Garrett Bird, we know that it's very difficult in cases of violence against women. Imagine for someone who's arriving from another country, but in your point of view, how are you working on this lack of trust?
Perfect. Thank you for the question. So a couple of quick comments. First is under the National Action Plan, there is a pillar for responsive justice systems, and that's to recognize the challenges and work with our partners to have a responsive justice system to support those that are subject to gender-based violence, including human trafficking. As part of the federal GBV strategy, our IRCC colleagues are a partner under that, and we're working with them across the government, along with the Department of Justice, on initiatives to support this. But I'd also like to point to some of the projects, human trafficking projects that are being funded by WAGE to focus on promising practices and supporting at-risk populations. So there are 42 projects we're currently funding, including ones like Women's Center for Social Justice, which is developing and implementing promising intervention practices to advance knowledge and enhance empowerment supports for at-risk populations and survivors of human trafficking in Ontario, Alberta, Yukon, BC, and Quebec. We also have the Native Court Worker and Counseling Association of BC, which is developing and implementing Indigenous-led, community-based, culturally rooted anti-human trafficking approaches, practices, and materials, again, to advance and enhance empowerment supports for at-risk Indigenous populations and survivors of human trafficking throughout British Columbia. So we're really taking a multi-pronged approach, and there's certainly many more project examples, but those are just some to demonstrate what we're doing to get to those issues.
Thank you so much. We're now going to pass it over to Leah Gazan. Leah, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair. Sorry, excuse me. And thank you so much for coming to committee today. My first question is for Madame Garrett-Bart. I know you, at the beginning of your presentation, you spoke about government's investment in gender-based violence strategies. You also mentioned in terms of the most at-risk populations being Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, 2S LGBTQIA+. I've raised this issue many times. It's of deep concern to me. I put forward a order paper question. I've just resubmitted it. So in 2020, the present government put in place $724.1 million for a violence prevention strategy. It's now 2023, only 5% has been spent, 37.1 million. Not one new shelter or transition home has yet to be built. So we're at 3 years. We know that one of the ways to protect all women, girls, diverse gendered populations first is having a safe place. Are there plans to expedite spending the money? Because I know this is costing lives. Certainly in Winnipeg, it's been in the news, the 2 women who they're currently searching in a landfill were staying in a shelter not housed for women. I believe if they had this housing, they would still be with us today, right? That and a guaranteed livable basic income. So I'm wondering, what is the plan to speed up the spending of that money?
Okay, thank you for the question. In budget 2021, as I mentioned, $601.3 million was provided, including funding for wage to deliver on a number of items. One of these was actually providing COVID emergency funding. So since April 2020, the department has provided over $259 million in COVID emergency funding to 1,400 organizations, including women's shelters, sexual assault centers, and other organizations providing critical supports and services to those experiencing gender-based violence.
Yes,
Wage is also currently funding
I appreciate
12.
that, but if you look at that's not actually my question. I know the allocation. It sounds great, but it's not being spent. So what is the plan to get that money out the door? I share this as well because in the 2022 budget, around addressing the crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, there was zero budgetary allocation. So as we sit on the money from 2020, I think it's holding up other necessary monies that will save lives. So what is the plan to get that money out the door? That's really what my question is. Thank you.
Thanks. So the funding that Wage has received has been sent out the door to those emergency shelters. And that has impacted a significant number of women. In addition, we are working with the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation on the National Housing Strategy and with Infrastructure Canada on reaching homes. Under Pillar 5 of the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, this pillar is about social infrastructure and enabling environment. There are potential opportunities for action here as well to build on investments in shelter and transitional housing supports and affordable long-term housing with support for operating costs.
Just for the purposes of time, could you submit to the committee how much funding has been allocated and how much funding has been spent to date? Just because I have a limited time and I want to move on to other questions. Thanks very much.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks so much. My next question is for Alex Graham or Sarah Hayward in terms of IRCC. So we had a member from the CBSA come during the last committee. And, one of the things he said is you should ask the IRCC. So you are here. So I will ask you. Okay. So, we know that a lot of, for example, migrant, even sex workers won't come forward because of fear of deportation, for example. There's an article that was issued in 2015 in the CBC, and it indicated that they should provide permanent residency for migrant sex workers caught up in sex trafficking investigations, because if they're not worried about their status, they're more likely to report violence. Where is the IRCC in terms of heeding that call to provide, and it was an article written in the CBC May 8th, 2015. So my question is, what steps have the IRCC taken to protect people that are being swept up in the human trafficking investigation in terms of offering permanent residency?
You have about 20 seconds.
So the first step is the VTIP TRP to get people who are in urgent need out of those precarious situations. But following the issuance of that first permit, a person can apply for a subsequent permit for up to 3 years and stay in Canada for that duration of time. They can also apply for permanent residence programs, such as family sponsorship programs. They can apply under our economic programs, also our humanitarian and compassionate programs.
Thank you so much. We're now going to go on to our next round. I'm going to reduce this round. Well, I'll reduce it only short. No, we'll go 5, 5, 2.5, 2.5, and just cut off the last two. So we'll start over with Anna for 5. And if you want to share whatever, just to share your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for being here. So I want to ask a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with Ms. Graham and Ms. Haywood. Do we have any stats on foreign national victims? Do you have any numbers for us?
On the types of citizenship, you mean
So-
the people who would have the...
The reason I asked this question, let me explain. I've been doing some research with a police officer that worked directly with human trafficking, and what they're telling me is that these numbers are increasing. Foreign students are coming abroad, foreign perpetrators are coming abroad illegally, and they find that it's easy for them in Canada to have a business of human trafficking because the sentences don't match the crime, whereas drug dealers, it's a little different. They get a stiffer penalty. So my question is, how many perpetrators have been convicted? How many victims, foreign victims, have been, have you come across? Do we have stats for that?
We do not have stats ourselves on the perpetrators. Currently, today, we only have stats with us for the people we have issued VTIP TRPs for. And as we said, that's a very small portion of human trafficking. It's people who did not have status when they came to our attention. So I have stats on that. In 2022, we saw citizenships from Mexico, Philippines, Guatemala, Jamaica, Ukraine. Those were some of the citizenships that we saw when we issued the VTIP TRP.
And so were these victims?
Yeah, they would all be victims.
And how many of them would you say?
In 2022, we issued 155 VTIP TRPs.
And out of those 155 victims, how many perpetrators were arrested?
That I can't comment on because that would not be our department.
Maybe Ms. Natalie, can you give us a number on how many perpetrators with the 155 victims were either convicted or arrested?
All I can do is refer you back to the Human Trafficking Jurostat, which provides the numbers for both accused and victims.
Okay,
per
so
year.
I'm a little...
I'm just going to interrupt. Can you make sure that we are linked to that Jurostat? We don't have that access. So can you be sure to ensure that we, as this committee, gets that information? We are walking with 0 numbers right now, so we need that information.
I will ensure it's sent to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So my next question is, you mentioned a website that has a lot of information. Would you say that from this website you can gather information of perpetrators, of victims, the situation? I guess what I'm trying to get at is any police officers that I've spoken to, and I'm actually going to be attending a forum back home, they're telling me that the numbers are increasing and that the victims are increasing and the perpetrators are increasing. But if we don't have numbers, how can we attack the problem? How can we fight this issue so we can protect our young people, we can protect the citizens of this country?
Good question.
I understand that Statistics Canada officials are to come before you in April, I believe.
Okay.
And I think, I'm very happy to send you the Juristats. It would be worth your while to take
Yep.
a quick read through before they arrive. But
Okay.
all of these questions can be asked to them.
Okay.
And they may have more information than we do.
No, he doesn't. Okay, so I guess my next question is to, I'm sorry, is it Clara? Clary? You mentioned funding to help these victims. I'm not sure if you've ever had an opportunity or you've come across a young lady by the name of Tamia. So she was denied funding from a program that she was able to assist 300 victims and over 500 human trafficked individuals. Why would she not continue to have funding if she has such a program, a successful program that helps these victims? Crystal, sorry. Crystal, I apologize, Crystal. Sorry. Late night last night. I apologize, Crystal.
Okay.
So my question, I don't know if you heard that question. Did you need me to repeat it?
If you could repeat it, please.
Okay, so Tamia Nagley is an individual that has helped over
Get it done in
500
5 seconds. 5 seconds.
Oh, 500 human
go.
traffickers, and she has been cut off from funding. Can you tell me why? Was that fast enough, Madam Chair?
Women and Gender Equality Canada does not provide frontline services. We provide support and funding to civil society organizations to enable them to support individuals and at-risk groups. I don't have any details of the case that you're referencing with me.
Thank you so much. We're now going to pass it over to Jenna. Jenna, you've got the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much to the witnesses who have joined us today. I'm going to start with Ms. Levman. A very basic question first, maybe just to ensure a clear understanding, and that is, what are the punishments under the criminal code for human traffickers?
So I assume that you mean what are the penalties in the code? So there are technically 6 offenses. There's a main trafficking offense, and that has a maximum penalty of 14 years or life, depending on whether or not aggravated assault, aggravated sexual assault, kidnapping was also committed. So that bumps it up to life. And there are mandatory minimum penalties of 4 and 5 years, depending on whether it's 14-year max or life. And then there is a child-specific offense, 279.011. The maximum penalties are the same. Obviously, there's no higher penalty than life. And the mandatory minimum penalties are slightly higher, 5 and 6 years. There's a material benefit offense, and that offense has a maximum penalty of 14 years where the victim is a child, and 10 years where the victim is an adult. Where the victim is a child, there are mandatory minimum penalties. And then there's a documents offense, so withholding or destroying documents for the purposes of facilitating trafficking. It doesn't matter if the documents are valid or forged. And that offense has a 10-year max where the victim is a child with a mandatory minimum penalty, and a 5-year max where the victim is an adult.
Okay, terrific. Thank you for clarifying that, laying that out for us. So what must persecutors prove in order to get a conviction for human trafficking?
So that was part of my introductory remarks. They have to prove the act element, which is recruiting, transporting, or harboring someone, and they have to prove that that act element was done for the purposes of exploiting the victim, meaning that the person who's doing it is the one exploiting them, or for the purposes of facilitating their exploitation by someone else. So it captures a very broad range of conduct.
Thank you very much. And one more, maybe a bit more specific question, and that's around
sharing of or threatening to share intimate images or sextortion. So we know this is, it's become more of a phenomenon, it's on the rise, and it has absolutely devastating impacts for victims. So I'm wondering what steps could be taken to address this growing crime.
I mean, in the context of human trafficking?
Yes, yeah.
Well, one thing I can note that the committee might find interesting is that human trafficking cases often involve a significant number of charges, many more charges than regular cases, and that'll be in your human trafficking juristat, which I'll ensure you get links to. And we see a wide range of different offenses, and this is because trafficking is an ongoing or course of conduct offense, during which incident-based offenses tend to be committed along the way, usually to control the victim. So that's what you are stating. You're stating the phenomenon of, if you don't perform this labor or this service, then I am going to share intimate images that I've taken of you with X person or the world or whatnot. And so we do have cases where we see different charges being laid. And 162.1, which is your non-consensual distribution of intimate images offense, can be used in that context. Extortion is the offense for extorting sexual favors, and we have very good case law on that offense. It's clear that extorting sexual favors, extorting money or whatnot by threats of I'm going to release your pictures is extortion. Extortion's a very, very serious offense with a maximum of life.
Thank you so much. We're now going to pass it over for the 2.5 minutes to Adrienne. Adrienne, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you again to the witnesses for being with us today. I'll carry on with my first question, but in 2019, the federal government implemented a series of measures. So the national strategy, we heard it through the testimonies of different departments and organizations, and they mentioned the importance of data, prevention, investigations, protection of victims. So working together within the different departments, how do you see it? Because we're seeing a lot of shortcomings for protecting victims, for example. And this is what we heard from the United States. How can we better protect victims of human trafficking in the spirit of cooperation between the different departments? I'll start perhaps with immigration, or Ms. Levman.
Collaboration is a huge part of the work we do in this national strategy to address human trafficking. I think public safety is probably the best place to give you that overarching perspective and how that collaboration kind of all fits together under the national strategy. But I can say in terms of immigration's role, I mean, we do collaborate quite closely with law enforcement agencies through our investigations. As Sarah was saying earlier, we kind of provide that supportive information, that intelligence that goes into those enforcement actions. So that is one connection point that's very, very close for us. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add more on that.
Peut-être qu'entendre, il ne me reste...
I only have about 30 seconds left, so perhaps the perspective of the Department of Justice with Ms. Levman or with Ms. Garrett-Byrd, for if you could each respond in 15 seconds.
I would just note the Human Trafficking Task Force, which is run by Public Safety, and that brings all of the implicated departments together on a regular basis so that we're sharing information regularly and assisting each other in the work that we do as appropriate.
Okay, we're now going to pass it over to Leah Gazan. Leah, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair. My last question is for Madame Levman. You spoke about trust in policing, and building trusting relationships. I would differ in the way that we know that particularly the RCMP is riddled with systemic racism and has a history of over or under policing, as we saw in the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, that provided very specific calls for justice to address this. I don't think that this is best served with policing. That's my bias. I think that it's best addressed by frontline community organizations to address safety issues with women, girls, 2S LGBTQIA that may be being sex trafficked, or just sex workers in terms of reporting. Does your department support community-based, independent-run agencies and organizations to serve on the front lines and advocates for people should they become sex trafficked or need protection as sex workers?
Thank you. Yes. Well, Justice Canada has a victims fund, and it has an ongoing annual allocation of $1 million available to victim surveying organizations delivering specialized supports and services for victims and survivors of human trafficking. So we do some of that funding. I would say, though, in relation to the substance of your concerns, that partnerships are incredibly important, and I know that many police departments, policing is very complex in Canada because there's so many different police forces, but many police forces have specialized units that deal with human trafficking with embedded support services.
So just looking at the research, for example, when I look at the butterfly.
About 15 seconds.
Sorry. They talk about the need to resource community, kind of divest from policing because a lot of people don't feel safe going to police, including for reasons of being deported, like it's overland. Is your department looking at putting greater funding in frontline organizations rather than policing to address this?
10 seconds.
That's what part of what that $1 million that I explained is for.
That's very small,
Okay.
1 million.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
We're going to be ending this. Thanks very much. We're going to be ending this panel in a second, but before you leave, I'm just going to ask from IRCC. You talked earlier about the VTIPs and TRPs, and you indicated countries. If you could give us a list of those countries with the ages and genders of those victims that received those VTIPs, I would really appreciate that if you could send that to the committee. Thank you so much. We're going to now just do a switch up, and I know that we'll be bringing the people that are online back on, but I would really like to thank the four of you for coming to provide this information to our committee. We'll suspend for about a minute so that we can get right back to work. We are going to send our, I'm so sorry, scaring people here. Well, it was, I wanted to make sure I had everybody's attention, especially yours today. So I would like to welcome everybody back. We have quite a bit of work that we have to get done, and at 6 o'clock is our deadline. So I'm going to pass over to, we have the next three panelists. We have from the Aboriginal Women's Action Network, we have Faye Blaney, who is the lead matriarch. No, we don't. She's not here, but maybe next time. From the Ontario Nation Women's Association, Coralie McGuire-Surrett, Executive Director. And I would like to say, Coralie, thank you so much. And we're just going to give her a lot of space because this beautiful woman has searched all over New York to make sure she had a headset. And so thank you so much for making sure that's important. We do know she got her head approved just moments ago. And from the Women of the Métis Nation, Melanie Omenaho. Okay, Omenaho. So I think you both, I'm going to both give you 5 minutes for your opening statements, and I'll pass it over to Coralie first for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Cora McGuire-Surrett, and I am the Executive Director of the Ontario Native Women's Association. ONWA is the largest and oldest Indigenous women's organization in Canada and has the largest Indigenous-led anti-human trafficking program. In the last 10 months, we have helped support 426 women and girls to safely exit human trafficking. I want to acknowledge the bravery, wisdom, and leadership of all survivors as they are the experts, as their advice informs all aspects of our anti-human trafficking work. Today, my testimony will focus on the ways that we can prevent and address trafficking of Indigenous women and girls, and ways we can improve law enforcement's ability to identify and hold offenders accountable. In 2018, ONWA released a report called The Journey to Safe Spaces, based on an intensive engagement with over 3,300 community members, service providers, and including 250 self-identified survivors of human trafficking. Now and historically, Indigenous women have the poorest outcomes in the 16 most acceptable social determinants of health in the country. To prevent the human trafficking of Indigenous women and girls, we must first address the risk factors that create the conditions that make them more vulnerable and targeted by human traffickers, such as income security, lack of social and cultural supports, and lack of equitable access to healthcare, just to name a few. We all know that colonization has significantly influenced the current landscape of Indigenous women and girls being trafficked in Canada. They are vulnerable to violence because they are both under and over-policed. They are often not believed and further victimized by the systems that are mandated to protect them. They experience multiple barriers, inequality, systemic discrimination, racism, lateral violence, and excluded from the nation-to-nation policy engagements. If we want sustainable change, then we need to deconstruct the current systems and reconstruct Indigenous women's leadership, their voices, their honor, and empowerment. Governments at all levels must implement a distinction-based plus approach in alignment with Article 18 of the UNDRIP. Governments must also support Indigenous women's organizations through core funding, so that they can provide safe spaces which are survivor-centered, culturally grounded, and designed and led by Indigenous women. Indigenous women's lives are not projects. We cannot address systemic change through project-based funding. It is difficult to work towards reconciliation when Indigenous women are not safe in our country. To date, there has been an abundance of education, training, and public awareness campaigns, but there has not been an abundance of core funding to support prevention-based services. Not all provinces in Canada have prioritized human trafficking, and many still do not have strategies to address or eliminate the human trafficking of Indigenous women and girls. It is critical to understand that Indigenous women's voices have been left out and silenced in conversations that impact their safety and well-being and livelihood. This is why ONWA advocates for a distinction-based plus approach. We cannot afford to continue leaving Indigenous women out of the conversation while we are 6 times more likely than non-Indigenous women to be murdered. The issue of police accountability is a conversation that needs to be addressed at many levels. All police forces must acknowledge the systemic level of racism embedded within their systems and work towards change. The police need to build trust with Indigenous women's organizations in order for Indigenous survivors of human trafficking to feel safe enough to report the exploitation to them. Clear policing standards and training would assist police in identifying victims of human trafficking, but after identification, police investigations need to be trauma-informed and done without discrimination or bias. All police forces across Canada should review and ensure that they have implemented all recommendations from the 2018 Broken Trust Report to make sure their organizational behavior aligns with addressing and eliminating systemic racism and does not perpetuate it. We still have governments today quick to dismiss the notion of human trafficking exists in our community because it's difficult to hear what Indigenous women and girls negotiate every day just to survive. In closing, I would like to encourage the committee to review our Reconciliation with Indigenous Women report and our Journey to Safe Spaces strategy in full, as they both provide a comprehensive roadmap to keeping Indigenous women and girls safe from human trafficking and support them to rebuild their lives. Chimegwich.
Thank you so much. And we're now going to pass it over to Melanie Omeninho from the Women of the Métis Nation. Melanie, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for making space for Women of the Métis Nation, the FEWO, to come and present here today. Human trafficking is a grave concern to all of us. I'm presenting to you from the motherland of the Métis Nation and Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, Alberta. The impacts of Métis displacement from their homeland, the harms experienced through issues like residential school systems, our loss of culture, and the abuse experienced from our communities within the child welfare system and the 60 Scoop means that many of our families and communities struggle and are disconnected from their culture and their ability to heal within their communities. Violence is a part of our lives each and every day, and we really appreciate organizations like ONWA that have brought to you the statistics. But many of the Métis have no statistics, and the data is not tracked, and we don't know what our numbers are. But we do understand that the systemic causes have led us to the devaluation of Métis women and gender diverse people. And further, we see a horrific normalization of sexual violence within our country. Métis women, girls, and gender diverse people are more vulnerable to traffickers because of colonialism, intergenerational trauma, histories of unresolved physical and sexual abuse, and diverse abilities, mental health, and poverty also form some of the reasons why many of our women are vulnerable to being human trafficked. Women have always been specifically targeted for violence through federal policies and legislation such as script policies, marriage laws, and the rights to property that were created to undermine family, community, and the political structures that existed within our communities. We further acknowledge our vulnerabilities that lead to trafficking by age. Children from 0 to 6, we even have them on birth alerts, and we're aware of just how our communities are susceptible to the kind of vulnerabilities that are created by such things. Youth may be experiencing a loss of their culture and a loss of identity, and are doing unhealthy sexual behaviors and sexualization because of the experiences that they have from being disconnected from their communities, their families, and their structures. Into early adulthood, traffickers might recruit Métis youth from across our Métis Nation motherland with the promise of glamorous life, which adds to further isolating them from their communities. We see vulnerabilities in youth, aging out of care, and those with the involvement in the justice system, or those otherwise disconnected from their family and community. No reports exist on Métis perspectives of human trafficking and anti-human trafficking. We need to be able to inform pathways for healing and support survivor engagement to ensuring Métis-specific strategies are addressing the unique realities of Métis women and 2S LGBTQIA+ people. Human traffickers follow the money by luring girls and women into areas where they're very close to their resource-based industries or camps where young men are there to find ways to exploit them. There are several corridors in the human traffickers where our girls have been noticed, like from Thunder Bay to Toronto, down to Minnesota, from Winnipeg to North Dakota, and from Vancouver to Washington. Alberta has also been a favored destination in recent years, with Calgary and Edmonton as longtime hotspots. Secondary routes lead to resource towns such as Fort McMurray, Alberta, in providing isolation and protection away from anti-trafficking initiatives. Formal statistics reflecting the number of Métis women and 2S LGBT people who are trafficked are inadequate for many reasons, including the underground nature of the industry and the underreporting by victims due to fear and coercion and moving around of those being trafficked. We would like to make some recommendations that we're hoping that this committee with their study will be able to do.
Melanie,
Yes,
I'm
sorry.
going, your 5 minutes is up right now. What I'm going to do, because I know our time is so tight tonight, Melanie, if you could make sure we get those recommendations, we need to get those on the record because I know you have a lot to offer, but I want to ensure that everybody on the committee gets their chance to ask questions as well. So I'm going to cut you off now, but I'm going to ask you for those recommendations in writing if you don't mind, and I'm going to pass it over and start our rounds of questioning. For questioning, we'll have 30 minutes total. So I'm going to start off with the 6 minutes and pass it over to Michelle Furry.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you both for being here. It's a powerful, important conversation. If I may start with you, Ms. McGuire-Syret, if I've said that wrong, or said that right, sorry. I read a stat, and I know you quoted it, and I don't think I wrote it down fast enough. While Indigenous women only make up 4% of the Canadian population, they roughly make up 50% of trafficking victims. While this is heartbreaking, obviously thoughts and prayers are not solving this issue. So I guess I'm asking, what do you feel the government is doing? Do you think they're doing enough today to protect Indigenous women and girls from being trafficked?
Thank you for the question. Definitely, when you're looking at statistics, I know it's all over the place. I was listening to the earlier session around data and the lack of data around this issue because of, it's just the tip of the iceberg that the stats that we're seeing. In some communities, I would imagine the number is probably even substantially higher. Our statistics, for instance, are showing, our program alone, which is the largest Indigenous anti-human trafficking program in Canada, since 2017 to 2022, we've helped support 858 exits of human trafficking through 12,000 contacts. So this is our own data that we're tracking with the woman that we've been working with. And so there is definitely some the communities that have Indigenous women even higher rates than 50% in some of the smaller communities. So I think that as long as this issue continues to exist, then we're failing. We're failing Indigenous women as a community, as a society, as a system, and we need to be doing more to keep Indigenous women safe. And there's a connection to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and human trafficking. There's a direct correlation to missing girls, missing children, missing women, and a connection to human trafficking.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I hate interrupting you, but we only have so much time. You answered my next question and sort of segued perfectly into where I was going with that correlation between murdered and missing Indigenous women and human trafficking. And you spoke about what we heard in the last panel with the lack of data, and it was appalling, actually. It's appalling, but I also don't know the answer. And I guess I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, because the reality is, in my experience of seeing in my community, we have, women working and also being trafficked, but it's not being reported. So how do you collect data if you don't know what those numbers are? And I guess I go back to murdered and missing Indigenous women, when these women were left as nothing and they weren't accounted for in the system. How do we know the true data, and then how do we solve it? Do you have any insight on how we can do that with when it's not reported?
Yeah, definitely. I think, if we get down to the root cause of it, we need to invest in Indigenous women's safety. That's the bottom line. We know that the issue is there. We know that, there's business cases to be built. We know that there's data, there's lack of data, particularly when you're looking at, the root cause of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and that we don't have the data around, the entire story, like the death story, for instance, how many women have died, who killed her, what was the causes of death. All of those things would lead to policy change at a systemic level. And the same thing goes, when you're looking at addressing human trafficking or violence against Indigenous women, we have seen the data show that non-Indigenous women continue to have their safety increase, and it's because of the investments into them, into their systems. Their systems do not work for us as Indigenous women, and we need to see investments into Indigenous women's physical safety immediately. And really looking at, that's the systemic approach that we have to start to address. And we need that core sustainable funding for Indigenous women's agencies. That hasn't happened here in Canada. And that has to be that long-term sustainable funding to support Indigenous women's safety.
Thank you so much for that. And I guess if I may give the opportunity to Miss, I'm going to say your last name wrong, so I'm going to say Melanie, if you're okay with that, Melanie. It's a chicken and egg situation, because the way a lot of funding works is that you show the data to get the funding for a program. So how do we invest in something? Well, we have this many, we need this much, we need this many resources. What's your suggestion on the best way to collect data when so many of these women are not reporting it? The victims aren't reporting it because they're full of shame, or they live in fear by their perpetrator. So how do we collect this data?
So part of what I believe needs to happen is that creating safety for women to be able to report. Police are not a safe place for women at this point in time. And it's a shame, but that's the reality of the story that we live. And so we need to create spaces that are safe for people to report. So when they are reporting, they don't become victims of the systems that are supposed to be there supporting them. And I would tell you that the other issue is racism is an issue in this country. And that's evident whether we're talking about human trafficking or missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. People don't want to see the numbers. They're afraid. Look at what happened when the report came out about the 215 graves in Kelowna. Everybody was so surprisingly shocked. Well, there had been a Truth and Reconciliation report that had clearly identified that this had been going on, and it was story after story had been told to the TRC. Why should have it shocked anybody if they'd have been paying attention? It's because people don't want to really acknowledge the numbers. So even the information from the police, and them reporting and tracking isn't happening. So thank you
so much, Melanie, especially when we're talking about such an important topic. I hate cutting you off. So I'm trying to be polite with the thank you. So I'm now going to pass it over to Anita. Mark Saray. Mark, I'm going to... 1 minute. I thought I read this improper. Mark and Anita are switching around. Emanuela, you've got the floor for 6 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you to both of our witnesses for being here and providing amazing testimony and very helpful testimony for our study. I guess I'm going to start with Mrs. McGuire-Siret and ask you, you said that your organization has helped 850 people out of trafficking over the last few years through 12,000 contacts. So your anti-human trafficking program. And considering the fact that we're trying to find a way to better the situation of human trafficking in Canada, can you give us some of the key takeaways of this program and what's made it successful to help bring 850 people out of it, that you would want to share with other organizations that are trying to do similar work?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, it was designed and led by survivors. This is where, we go to the women who are the experts on this issue. And so they've developed the entire strategy. It was a survivor-led strategy within the province. And it was comprehensive. So we included everybody in our engagements. We engaged with service providers, we engaged with community members, survivors of human trafficking. And that's the approach we took, is that recognizing, they know what's best and they know where the gaps are and what's needed. And so we created our Journey to Safe Spaces report. And so our report really is that roadmap of what survivors have said, what they needed. And so, and we share our report freely. It's on our website. Anybody can access our report. And you can really see what's in there is how to create, a safe space strategy. Where you need to have barrier-free access to programming and services. You need to have create systemic change. You need to be able to address this issue from a policy level, an education level, a service level, at every level. And it's across departments, it's across ministries, because the issue is so intersectional with so many different issues. It's not just kind of one, dealing with one kind of bad man type of thing. It's really is here in Canada. The sexualization of Indigenous women and girls is so normalized in our communities and our behavior that, the trafficking of our children continues. And so we have to be able to break that normalization and break that down. And how you do it is through investments, comprehensive investments that actually will meet the need through long-term sustainable funding.
Thank you. Just earlier, we were talking with IRCC and with other government departments who were talking about, certain pathways for women who are not from Canada. And they were saying that very often women are reluctant to come out. Of course, many of them face deportation, but in general, women may feel unsafe to report themselves and say that, that they are being trafficked. Through your program, what have you heard from some of the victims? What is it that helped them feel safe enough and comfortable enough to come out? And do you think that we should be taking a more proactive approach in order to get people to talk about it more openly and to go get help when they're in these situations?
Yeah, the survivors have told us they need barrier-free access to services and services where it's safe for them to have these conversations. And this is why when you're looking at Indigenous women's agencies, when you're going to an Indigenous women's agency that has cultured programs and support that's been designed and developed by you, for you, that's the change piece right there. And so they're more able to talk together to build that community of care, the community of support. The biggest part of our program, what we do is we walk the healing journey with the woman. We don't walk it for her. We're here as support and long-term support. So many of the women and girls that we work with, sometimes in the system, you can only work with a woman or girl like for maybe, 48 hours, 72 hours, they put these barriers of time on it. For us, it's like, no, if we're still walking that healing journey with them for 1 to 2 years, however long they need us to be there with them. And so, if you can just, imagine, that somebody, has come to you and is experiencing this, it hits you, it changes you, because every single one of these women and girls is a beloved mother, daughter, auntie, sister, and just being able to care for them, believe their stories, because there's many stories where systems are not believing the violence that these girls are facing. And so we start off by first and foremost believing their story. Is their story, and that's their truth.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your responses.
Thank you. What we're going to switch over. So there's going to be 6 minutes, and I'm going to give you a little additional few seconds over top of that for both the Bloc and the NDP. Then we'll come back for 1 minute of questions from the Conservatives and the Liberals. So I'll pass it over to Adrienne Laroche for about 6.5. Go for it.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being with us and sharing the Indigenous perspective. It's part of the statistics. Indigenous women are disproportionately impacted by human trafficking. You also mentioned the importance of the different departments working together. Earlier this week, we heard from the CBSA, Public Safety, and the RCMP. I was surprised to see that if we had to rely on only their efforts, I don't think we'd get very far in human trafficking. I understand that people isolate victims, and the different departments were saying that it was almost impossible to see what was going on. You work with victims. I know that working upstream is important and downstream is important in taking care of these women. But what have these women had to say about police intervention and what could be improved with the RCMP, police services, or the CBSA? What could they do? What could they do more of or less of to support victims? What can they do better at the time of the intervention? What can be done to increase detection?
Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. I think the first thing that policing needs to do is believe the woman and be able to provide that trauma-informed response to them. And you have to be able to do that with but you're also dealing with a systemically racist system, and that's where we have to look at changing that system and breaking it down, so that way they're able to remove their bias and racism, to be able to respond to the women and girls and be able to connect her to programming and services in the community, that will be able to help support her. And so, the one issue is like around like project-based funding. You can have like the supports and resources for women in community may or may not be there because it's short-term based funding. It's not a long-term response. And so being able to build that response in community to support them. And, how do we get the data in a good way on kind of what's happening on the ground with the policing and the services to be able to look at it holistically to be able to respond to this issue. And so, when experts are saying about 10% of HT victims report working better with frontline agencies. And so sometimes, it's not safe to be able to go through the justice system because, women have told us that there is no justice in the justice system for them. And so the biggest part that the women want to work on is their healing. And so we need to really look at where is the healing supports for Indigenous women. That's a key piece here that's missing.
Madame.
Ms. Omanijo, if you have anything to add, please do. And I would also give you the opportunity to share your recommendations since we weren't able to hear them. I know you were asked to send them in writing, but I would give you the time to share your recommendations right now because we're looking for concrete ways of improving things.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I do support what Cora was saying. We need to have services that are available on the ground to women that are Indigenous services, and we need to help build those. In fact, one of our recommendations is building a Métis anti-human trafficking strategy that will be with the victims themselves, helping to develop that strategy. So moving forward, it's through the lessons that have been learned from them that we're able to do that. The second piece of recommendations that I want to say that I know hasn't been mentioned in the time that I've been here and listening today is the fact that online processes are making our people very vulnerable, especially our very young people, to human trafficking. And the laws in this country have not caught up to what internet is doing, and we need to be able to establish and create laws to protect our young people from the perpetrators that are out soliciting them and trying to romanticize them to come to places that are making them victims.
Donc,
so you were talking about cybercrime and cyber violence. And I imagine you noticed a difference during the pandemic in human trafficking. During the pandemic, human trafficking didn't stop. Have you noticed any changes and the increase in cybercrime and how it's easier to trick people? Is that what you meant?
That's exactly what, thank you. Sorry, that's exactly what I mean. Many of our young people, especially during COVID, were isolated and put into positions where they were looking for their networks and community attachments through things like internet, which made them very vulnerable to strangers that are out there to exploit them. And violence is a real thing in our communities, and it's something that's been so normalized that people don't realize that when these young people are being sexualized through the internet, they become victims and fall prey to people that are trying to exploit them. We've heard many, many stories. I know they haven't been in the news, where many of our young people have been brought out of their homes and taken to other cities and even into other countries and been exploited. And they're very hard to find. And our Indigenous young women don't get sought after like if it was a non-Indigenous person that's gone missing.
Melanie, thank you so much. We're now going to pass it over to Leah. Leah, 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair, and so good to see both of you here today, and I want to thank you for your work. One of the things that I've been pushing forward along with advocates is to immediately put in place a red dress alert for Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQIA+, who go missing, like an Amber Alert they have for children. Both of you brought up issues around systemic racism and policing, issues of over-policing, under-policing. One of the reasons why, one of the suggestions that I've made along with advocates is it must be led in terms of jurisdiction and who has control over it by families of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, because these programs and systems are often put in place without our input. Do you agree with me that a red dress alert would save lives? And do you agree with the need for it to be Indigenous-led and Indigenous-driven in terms of decisions on how it's executed? I'll start with you, Madame Ameniahu. Is that right? Did I pronounce it right?
Omenhio.
Omenhio. I love your testimony all the time, and I'm ashamed and want to crawl in a corner. But can you please maybe share maybe 30 seconds, and then I'll move over to you, Madame McGuire-Charette.
I would support a red dress alert. I think that's a fabulous idea. I do believe that if there was more tools put into the toolkit to help our families when women go missing or when we believe that people are vulnerable, I believe that there would be a lot fewer women that would be lost to us permanently. Thank you.
Thank you for answering that part. In terms of jurisdiction, I know you spoke a lot about the need for it to be led by survivors, led by families. Madame McGuire-Charette, can you please? I mentioned in terms of jurisdiction. Do you agree with me that it needs to be led by Indigenous women and girls and families, survivors?
I do agree with you. I think I agree with Melanie and you that this is a tool that's needed, and I think it's a great idea, and it's something that we would support in the implementation, and particularly around jurisdiction. I think we have to remember violence doesn't know jurisdictional bounds, whether it's First Nation, whether it's urban, whether it's rural, whether it's across the province or across Canada. There is no jurisdictional bounds for this type of violence or any type of violence, particularly for Indigenous women, and so it would have to be implemented across and to remove those barriers.
My next question is related to a guaranteed livable basic income. I put forward a bill in support of a guaranteed livable basic income as a key in response to the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls and Two-Spirit People call for Justice 4.5. Do you agree that a guaranteed livable basic income is a necessary step to mitigate this ongoing genocide against Indigenous women and girls and diverse gendered people?
I believe that basic livable income would change a lot of factors for many women who are vulnerable and end up putting themselves into situations that put them at risk. So I believe that if we had a basic livable income, it would make sure that women are not as vulnerable as they are today.
And moving over, just a question to Madame Maguire-Charette. You spoke about we are not a program. I asked a question in the last round and noted the $0 that was put in the 2022 budget to address the crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls because of what you both indicated, a normalized violence against Indigenous women and girls and diverse gendered people. How is the failure of consecutive governments, all levels of governments, but particularly the federal, because we're here, to provide sustainable funding costing lives?
Yeah, definitely. I think, when we are looking at, the situation, I think that was referenced out of Winnipeg, and that's most recently on our mind. I think there's showing the lack of evidence, it's just showing evidence that we haven't invested enough into Indigenous women's safety, and it's not acceptable. And we have to make this change now. And so I think that's, and it has to be long-term sustainable funding. So when we're asking for core funding for Indigenous women's agencies, a lot of times if you want to do this type of work, Melanie, we talk quite a bit around, First Nation women's councils, urban Indigenous women's agencies. If you want to do this type of work, you either have to be able to fundraise to try to keep your doors open, or, you do project-based funding, which is kind of piecemeal funding, and then, held to a level of account of, non-Indigenous women's agencies who have had core sustainable funding for many times and are provided with the resources in order to ensure that the best programming and services are available, because the funding doesn't allow you to have, for instance, an executive director, a finance director, a human resource manager. The funding, isn't there. And then also to have the data, to have the policy that also supports it. So when we're looking at making changes, this is something I think, would make a huge impact relatively quickly, is being able to provide Indigenous women with core sustainable funding.
Thank you. I can't remember which one of you spoke about displacement. I think it was you, Melanie, that spoke about displacement and resource. And you connected, we just did a study on the connection between violence and the resource extractive industries. How is displacement from lands connected with sex trafficking? Quick response, sorry. I'm running out of time.
Because people that don't have their community, their families in the land in which they come from, where they've learned to survive, become very vulnerable and will become victims of things like sex crimes, especially in our oil and gas sector, as much as nobody wants to admit to that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We're down to 1 minute each. I'm going to pass it to Anna for 1 minute, Anita for 1 minute. Anna, go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask this question to Melanie. I can't remember if it was Melanie or is it Coralie that made a comment about barrier-free access to service. Can you explain that? And I can't remember if it was which one of you made that comment. Can you explain that to me in detail?
Sure. Yeah, I think that was me. When we're looking at barrier-free access, when the woman needs the service, she gets the service. And so we have to change our systems to meet her needs as opposed to her meeting our needs. So a lot of times when you need access to service or you need help or support, you may get a referral if there's multiple things being involved. So what we do as an agency, we've created a centralized intake office. And so what happens in that centralized intake office is that the woman will call in and we have to figure out who is best able to support her in our system and for her not to have to retell that story repeatedly. And so it's up to us to actually make that change to make sure it's as barrier-free and meets her needs as possible.
Thanks so much, Coralie. I'm now going to pass it over to Anita. 1 minute.
Ms. Omenhue, when you did your opening remarks, you didn't get a chance to complete your remarks, so I'll give you the minute so that you can do that.
Actually, I mostly did get to complete them, as much as I never got to do all the notes that they gave me the reality is that we need to make sure that there are services by Indigenous women for Indigenous women that help develop, that are developed by the victims of human trafficking, so that the services are best suited for the people that they were designed for.
If you have any other final remarks.
I just would like
Coralie,
to say
sorry.
that I appreciate, oh, sorry, did you want Coralie to do
Coralie,
this?
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, definitely. I think the one piece I'd really like to see is the 24/7 response to Indigenous women. That's what's needed in this country.
Well, on behalf of the committee, I would greatly like to thank both Melanie and Coralie for coming here and providing this testimony. It'll be very useful when we're doing our study. I'm just going to thank you, and you may carry on, but I have about 3 minutes of work that we need to do before we leave for the day, and this is to do with some committee business. So on Wednesday, March 22nd, a proposed study budget of the amount of $39,600 was circulated to all of the members for their consideration. Shall this budget be adopted? Looking for a motion to adopt our budget. Sonia saying yes. All those in favor? We're good. Passing that. Now, on Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023, Subley agreed to grant FEWO a travel budget of $73,878 earlier. The House adopted a motion authorizing FEWO to travel, and we will be, Mark, you and I'll have to discuss this more, Vancouver, Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton, Sault Ste. Marie, Halifax, and Dartmouth in the spring of 2023, and we're looking at the week of April the 10th. I'm just going to explain, because this was something Mark came up to me about and talked. We talked about a region. So when we're talking about the Peel region, we needed to break that down into cities, which would be the Brampton and Mississauga. So that's why it looks big city focused, but it was a regional approach as when we're looking at that. And then Sault Ste. Marie, there was the choice between Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, and it was chosen as Sault Ste. Marie. So that's why it's looking like that. Pardon me, I'm sorry. Go for it.
Can you repeat the cities?
The cities are, we go Vancouver, the Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton, so that's kind of the GTA, Sault Ste. Marie, and Halifax and Dartmouth. So it's just because it's only across, as we said, it might be across the river, but they're two different destinations, and that's why when you're looking at Halifax and Dartmouth, it's just, we have to put it in that way. Yes, Leah? When would we be finished, the 14th? We would be April 10th through 14th, that is correct.
Oh, so we could go home before we have to go back to the dungeon.
I will take you home myself. Okay, so I know what you call it. Anyway, I want to give you a few more pieces of advice. There was a few questions that have been asked. And so on terms of travel, whether or not it can be a division of different people traveling from the committee. So here's the report. In terms of travel, a member can be replaced partway through by another member or even multiple members in different cities. However, the expense is only incurred once by the committee. Any additional expenses to get replacement to and from a city may not be covered by the travel budget of FEWO. Members are free to join the committee travel, i.e. a member may choose to participate in his or her riding, and the cost for travel would be borne by the member. So I'm just going to look to you, and that would mean that we could put it in our MOB, correct? So if we're traveling, if I'm traveling out to meet somebody and start, that could be part of my MOB, could it not? We will make sure we have that answer to you, because I know that there's some discussions. I was thinking, for instance, Sonia, maybe she picks us up in Brampton, we're right there, and we'll work this all out. I will make sure over the next couple of days we have all of this information, but I am looking at meeting with the vice chairs so that we can discuss this further, because there's a lot of information that we need to go to. The proposed dates for travel is from April 10th to Friday, April the 14th. 7 members are going to be authorized to travel. We do not know who are traveling. I know we need to discuss amongst our own, but there's just some information if you want to split it up. And there's going to be questionnaires that are going to be sent out to us. So those who are traveling, there will be questionnaires, i.e., where are you leaving from? That kind of information will need to be known. And you'll probably want to know what I can't and cannot eat. Is that correct? That kind of important stuff? Okay. So any questions before we go further?
Yes.
And who were you looking at? I'm sorry. Oh. Go ahead, Sonia.
Yes, Madam Chair. If we can have just a draft itinerary, if we can make before.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reaching out to yourself and to Leah and to Dominique and to Adrian to come up with a solution, what this may look like, and then we'll send that proposal out to everybody. But what we're looking for right now is we don't need to approve anything. We can discuss this travel plans, and I'll start it by a letter and then just sending it out to all of us to communicate through our parties, if that's okay. Are there any other questions on that? 7 in total. That will be 3 Liberals, 2 Conservatives, Adrian, Leah. So there'll be 1 NDP, 1 Bloc, 2 Conservatives, 3 Libs. That's we've never that's okay because there's nothing that's that's okay that's fine. We weren't planning on going, so that is what the total would be. So, any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, if I could get a motion to adjourn. Anita? All done. Fantastic.